My name is Mary Goodman. I am 27 years old, and until recently, I thought I was finally stepping into the life I had always dreamed of: quiet, steady, meaningful. I grew up in a middle-class household where my parents never let me forget that stability was earned, not given. They taught me to save early, spend wisely, and never build a future on wishful thinking alone. Those lessons shaped who I am. They made me careful with money, responsible, maybe even a little too grounded. But none of those lessons prepared me for falling in love. I met Daniel Rhodes 2 years ago at a friend's barbecue, the kind where you expect nothing other than the usual small talk and lukewarm soda. My friend Madeline had practically dragged me there, insisting I needed more air in my life. I remember rolling my eyes and going anyway. I expected boredom, definitely not the man who would change everything. Daniel wasn't the loud type. He wasn't performing for the crowd or trying to be the center of attention. He was sitting under the shade of a maple tree, flipping through a stack of printed photography samples. I remember the moment I walked toward him, how sunlight caught the strands of his hair, how he looked up at me with warm curiosity, not arrogance. He told me about his dream of becoming a film director someday. I laughed softly back then, thinking how sweetly ambitious he was. I didn't realize that ambition in the wrong hands can become someone else's weapon. We clicked, instantly, effortlessly, the kind of connection you don't fight because it feels too natural to question. Daniel had a calm charm, a quiet confidence, and a way of talking about life that made me feel like I had stepped into a softer world whenever he held my attention. I loved that about him. I loved him. But love, I learned, is not always enough. Not when someone else thinks they deserve to run your relationship for you. The first time I heard about his mother, Linda, I thought Daniel was exaggerating. She is opinionated. He had said one evening, his voice tight, the kind of tightness people develop after years of swallowing their truth. How opinionated, I had asked. Daniel exhaled slowly, slumping into the couch. She just has strong expectations about everything: my career, my friends, the people I date. He didn't look at me when he said that last part. I should have paid more attention to that moment. That was the first crack. Still, I didn't take it seriously. Everyone has complicated family members. I had no idea what it meant for someone's life to be governed by a parent's approval or terror until I saw it with my own eyes. The first time I met Linda Rhodes, she was polite in that icy surface hiding boiling judgment kind of way. She stared at my hands for too long. She asked about my job, my income, my long-term plan, in a tone that was more interrogation than curiosity. She told Daniel right in front of me, "Stability matters," as if I was a stranger applying for a position I wasn't qualified for. Daniel laughed it off. "That's just how she is," he whispered to me later. I nodded. I shouldn't have. Every interaction after that was a small erosion, a subtle remark, a look of disapproval, a question designed to make me doubt myself. The worst part was that Daniel never truly challenged her. He always tried to keep the peace, hoping she would eventually warm up to me. But she didn't. She never would. Despite all of it, Daniel's proposal was beautiful, so intimate and sincere that for a brief moment, every worry disappeared. He took me to our favorite riverside park where evening light spilled across the water like melted gold. We sat on the bench under a willow tree talking about nothing and everything. When he took out the ring box and knelt down, my breath caught in my throat. "Mary," he said softly, voice trembling, "you're the person I want to build my life with. Will you marry me?" I said yes. Of course I said yes. I loved him in a way that felt raw and terrifying and hopeful all at once. The ring wasn't enormous, but it was stunning, elegant, simple, meaningful. A platinum band with a beautiful solitaire diamond. I thought it was perfect because he picked it for me, not because of its size. For 3 days, I floated on air. Then Daniel suggested we visit his parents to share the news. I should have trusted my instincts, the heavy feeling in my chest, the tightening in my stomach, but Daniel seemed so hopeful that I forced myself to smile, hold his hand, and say, "Of course, let's go." When we arrived, Linda's eyes immediately darted to my left hand. "What is this?" she asked sharply. I lifted my hand, smiling nervously. Daniel proposed. She stared. Her face didn't soften. Instead, she moved closer, grabbed my hand, and examined the ring with a cold, surgical precision. Then she laughed. A short, humorless laugh. "This is the ring." Her voice was almost mocking. Daniel tensed beside me. "Mom, it's so small," she said, still gripping my hand. Are you sure this is an engagement ring and not something from a high school dating anniversary? Linda Daniel murmured, trying to calm her. This is embarrassing, she continued, letting go of my hand as if the ring had burned her fingers. An engagement ring should show commitment. This looks like she bought it for herself on discount. Heat rose to my cheeks, shame, anger, disbelief, blending into something nauseating. The ring is meaningful, I said quietly. Daniel chose it because, oh, I am sure he had reasons. She cut me off, smiling sharply at her son. Reasons that clearly didn't include giving you the best. She wasn't finished. Before I could react, she lifted the ring from the coffee table. Daniel had gently placed it down when she pulled my hand, and without hesitation, she threw it right at my face. The small box hit my cheek and fell to the floor with a soft thud. Daniel froze. I froze. The entire room froze. Finally, Daniel whispered, "Mom, what is wrong with you?" But he didn't raise his voice. Not enough. Not for me. Linda crossed her arms. If Daniel is serious about marriage, he should prove it. A proper ring. A proper investment. Marriage is not a charity project. I swallowed hard. My eyes burned. My breath trembled. Daniel looked torn apart, caught between two worlds, two loyalties, two expectations, but he said nothing strong enough to stop her. That was the moment I realized something chilling. I wasn't just marrying Daniel. I would be marrying his mother's judgment, control, and scorn. And she had no intention of giving me a chance. The car ride home was silent, not peaceful, devastating. I stared out the window, watching the night blur by, wondering if love could survive the shadow his mother cast over us, or if I was already losing him. I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of everything that would break. The days after the disaster at Linda's house passed in a kind of emotional fog. Daniel and I didn't argue, but we didn't connect either. It was as if both of us were walking on cracked glass, afraid that even the slightest pressure would make everything shatter. Every time I thought about that ring hitting my face, my chest tightened. Not because of the pain it hadn't hurt physically. It was the humiliation. The way Linda had looked at me like I was disposable. The way Daniel had looked at the floor instead of at her. Still, I kept waiting for him to bring it up, to apologize for not defending me more firmly, to promise it would never happen again. But the first person who brought it up was Linda. On the third night after the visit, Daniel sat beside me on the couch. He kept fidgeting, opening and closing his hands like he was searching for the courage to speak. Mom thinks we should take a step back. His voice was quiet, unsure. I felt my stomach clench. A step back from what? Everything he whispered. She thinks this engagement is too rushed. She wants time to talk things through with me. There it was, not phrased as his opinion, not framed as our decision. Linda's voice wearing Daniel's mouth. I could feel myself slipping into the kind of silence that protects you from saying something unforgivable. A cold numbness spread across my chest. Daniel, I said carefully, your mother humiliated me. She threw the ring at my face. And instead of confronting that she wants you to blame us for rushing, he rubbed his forehead. I know it was awful. She crossed the line. But she's still my mother. She wants to make sure we're building something stable. My jaw tightened. So now she's questioning our stability. She's just worried. Worried about what I snapped. That you're not marrying someone rich enough. Fancy enough. Worthy enough to pass her evaluation checklist. His silence was the answer. He didn't believe that, but he also didn't know how to confront her. And Linda knew that. For the next several days, things only worsened. Daniel grew more distant, not out of anger, but out of confusion. He started spending more time on calls with Linda. He would step out onto the balcony, close the door behind him, and speak in hushed tones. He thought I wouldn't notice, but I felt every second of it. When he returned inside, his expression was always a mixture of guilt and obligation, almost like a child caught between wanting approval and wanting independence. One night after a particularly long call, he spoke softly. Mom thinks I should stay with her for a while. The breath left my lungs. Stay with her, Daniel. What, why? She says we're both too emotional right now. She wants me to clear my head. I stood up from the couch slowly because if I moved too quickly, I might scream. And do you want to go stay with her? His eyes darted away. I think it might be helpful. I laughed, but it wasn't a laugh. It was a cracked sound ripped out of grief and disbelief. Helpful to your mother, I said. Not to us. Mary. Daniel, she's trying to break us apart. She has been since the beginning. She has never respected me or us. She's worried, he repeated. She wants to be sure we're ready. Daniel, I whispered, feeling something collapse inside me. Your mother doesn't want you to be ready. She wants you to be dependent. His flinch told me he knew it was true. But he didn't disagree with her. He didn't defend me. He didn't even defend himself. That night, he packed a small bag. He said it was just for a few days. He said nothing would change. He said he just needed to calm his mother down. But when he left, when the door closed behind him, I felt the house exhale in a way that terrified me. It felt like it was letting go of him. The first day he was gone, he texted me constantly. Mom is being nice. We're talking things through. She's trying to understand. I didn't believe a word of it. And on the second day, the messages changed. Shorter replies, delayed responses, less warmth. By the third day, she thinks we rushed things. She says she wants what's best for us. She wants us to slow down. She wants me to think. Every message felt like it was written by her hand. It was as if Linda had taken him, reshaped him, and handed him back to me, altered. On the fourth night, I received a call. Daniel's voice was trembling. Mom thinks we should take some space, just temporarily. She thinks we need to reevaluate whether we're ready. She thinks I repeated, Daniel, what do you think? I don't know, he whispered. And that was the first moment I truly felt afraid. Not of losing him, but of losing myself. Because I realized that if we continued like this, if every decision involved his mother, if every opinion of hers overshadowed mine, I would be swallowed alive. I could feel my voice shaking. Daniel, your mother is running our relationship. She insulted me. She humiliated me. She threw the ring at me. And instead of standing with me, you're letting her dictate the terms of our future. She didn't mean it like that, he said weakly. She didn't mean to hit me with a ring box. He flinched again. The silence between us grew so suffocating I had to step away from the phone for a moment. When I returned, I forced my voice to steady. You need to decide whether you want a future with me or a life controlled by your mother. Daniel inhaled sharply, like the sentence had struck him. And then, I need time, he whispered. My heart cracked. You've had time, I replied softly. You've had your whole life under her decisions, but I won't let her make mine. He didn't answer. And that silence became the beginning of our unraveling. For nearly a week after Daniel told me he needed time, our relationship hovered in a strange, suffocating limbo. Not fully broken, not truly intact, just suspended, held hostage by his mother's influence. He texted sometimes. Short messages. Polite. Empty. How are you? Hope you're okay. We should talk soon. But they all felt like placeholders' words typed by someone too afraid to choose a direction. Then one evening, he finally messaged something different. Mom says we should all talk together. She thinks it'll help. The moment I read it, my entire body went cold. All three of us. Together. In her house. Daniel still didn't understand. Linda wasn't inviting me to talk. She was inviting me to lose. I typed slowly, this is between us, not her. He replied, please, I need this. I need us to talk. And so against everything my instincts screamed, I agreed. But I didn't go to save the relationship anymore. I went to confirm whether there was anything left to save. When I arrived at the Rhodes house the next evening, the door opened before I even knocked. Daniel stood there, shoulders tense, eyes red-rimmed. He looked tired, emotionally wrung out, but he also looked terrified, like he knew that tonight might end something he wasn't ready to lose. Mary, he whispered, stepping aside to let me in. The living room felt staged like a courtroom, arranged for a trial. Linda sat on the couch, posture perfect, expression, unreadable legs, crossed fingers steepled. Her husband Michael sat beside her, gaze fixed on the floor. Daniel motioned for me to sit on the single armchair positioned directly across from them. Opposite sides, opposite intentions, opposite futures. I didn't miss the symbolism. Daniel sat between me and his mother, but slightly closer to her, subtle, yet painfully obvious. Thank you for coming, Linda began. Her tone was soft, but dangerously controlled. I could almost hear the unspoken, you should be grateful I'm giving you this audience. We all care about Daniel's future, she continued, and this situation has been stressful. We need clarity. I kept my gaze steady. Clarity would have been easier if boundaries had been respected from the beginning. Her smile tightened. Boundaries, she repeated, as if the concept amused her. Well, marriage is about partnership between families, not just individuals. Marriage is between two people, I corrected. Families support. They don't control. A flash of annoyance flickered across her face, but she hid it. She always hid it until she didn't. Let us be honest, Mary, she said, folding her hands. The ring situation escalated because emotions ran high. I apologize if you felt embarrassed. My jaw locked. If I felt embarrassed, not I shouldn't have thrown a ring at you. A non-apology from a woman who believed she did nothing wrong. Daniel swallowed. Mom, Linda raised a hand. He quieted immediately. I watched it happen, and something inside me snapped a little. Daniel deserves a stable partner, Linda continued. Someone financially responsible, emotionally mature, and committed to supporting his ambitions. I am not convinced that you fully understand what that means. There it was, the attack, wrapped in polite venom. I understand commitment, I said calmly. And I understand respect, something I haven't received here. Linda leaned forward, eyes sharp. This isn't about respect. It's about compatibility. And the ring you accepted. The ring Daniel designed and chose, I corrected. Symbolizes effort, she finished coolly. Or rather, lack thereof. Enough, Daniel whispered, voice cracking. Mom, please. But he didn't raise his voice. He didn't stand. He didn't defend me. He simply sat there, pleading softly, begging the storm to settle instead of shielding me from it. And Linda continued relentless. Daniel has worked too hard for his future to tie himself to someone who cannot match his pace. I blinked. Are you saying I'm not good enough for your son? She smiled sweetly. I am saying Daniel deserves someone who elevates him, not someone who weighs him down. My breath stilled. Daniel closed his eyes. I turned to him. Are you going to let her say that? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then whispered the words that broke something inside me. Mary, this is just how she is. She wants what's best. Is this what's best? I said, my voice trembling now, not with fear, but with rising fury. Humiliating me, undermining us, throwing a ring at me. Daniel, this isn't guidance. This is control. Stop dramatizing, Linda snapped, composure slipping. You are too sensitive. Marriage requires strength, sacrifice, the ability to put your husband's needs before your insecurities. I stared at her, then at Daniel, then back at her, and suddenly everything became clear. She wasn't testing me, she wasn't evaluating me, she was dismantling me, piece by piece, so I would walk away before Daniel had to choose. But I forced myself to stay steady. This isn't about the ring, I said. This isn't about stability. This is about you not wanting Daniel to love anyone more than he fears disappointing you. Her eyes flashed, a direct hit. She hid the reaction quickly. Daniel looked torn apart like he might break down right there. Mom, he whispered, please stop. For the first time, Linda ignored him. She looked directly at me. Mary, let me be blunt. I do not approve of this engagement. Daniel is not ready. You are not compatible. And if he marries you now... She paused for effect. He will regret it. Daniel's face went pale. Mom, I didn't let him finish. Daniel, I said softly, I need you to choose. Right now. Not between me and your mother. Between your own voice and hers. His breath caught. I waited. Linda waited. The entire room held its breath. Finally, Daniel said the words, I already knew were coming, but prayed I wouldn't hear. I don't know. A single tear rolled down my cheek before I could stop it. Not because he didn't choose me, but because he didn't choose himself. I stood slowly, every movement deliberate. This is your answer, I said quietly. Indecision is a decision, and I won't build a life with someone who can't stand with me even when I'm being attacked. Mary, wait, he said, grabbing my arm. His touch felt desperate, weak, apologetic. I just need more time, he whispered. Everything is so... You've had time, I said. You've had your entire life to learn how to separate your mother's voice from your own. If you still can't, then you're not ready for me. Linda stood too, smiling victoriously. Well, she said, I suppose this settles. Do not mistake this for your victory, I snapped, turning toward her. My voice was calm, almost icy. One day Daniel will realize what you've taken from him. And when he does, he'll understand the difference between guidance and possession. Her smile faltered, but only for a moment. Then I looked at Daniel one last time. I loved you, I whispered, but I will not lose myself to keep you. And I walked out without looking back. Because if I did, I might never leave at all. When I walked out of Linda's house, I told myself it was over. Not just the engagement, but the slow, suffocating erosion of my self-worth that had crept into my life piece by piece the moment Linda decided I wasn't good enough for her son. I thought leaving would bring relief. But heartbreak doesn't let go that easily, and neither did Linda. For the first few days, Daniel tried to reach out. Calls, texts, voicemails filled with guilt and confusion. But I didn't respond. Not because I didn't miss him, but because I needed space to find myself again, some part of me that wasn't shaped by Linda's approval or Daniel's hesitation. On the fourth day, the messages changed. Not from Daniel, but from my friends. Mary, have you heard what Linda is telling people? There are some rumors going around. Are you okay? I think you should know. My stomach twisted as the first message came through, then the second, then the third. I didn't want to know, but I needed to. So I picked up the phone and called my friend Serena. She hesitated before speaking, never a good sign. Mary, Linda told some of the women from her charity committee that you pressured Daniel into proposing. My breath hitched. What? She said you were desperate to secure yourself a husband because your career isn't stable enough to support you long term. My hand clenched around the phone. I had never relied on Daniel financially. I had never asked him for anything except respect, and he couldn't even give me that when it mattered. But it got worse. She's also saying you had unrealistic expectations, Serena continued, voice softening. That you wanted Daniel to buy you a house right after the wedding. That you cared more about money than him. I pressed a hand over my mouth to stop the sob rising in my throat. The lies were so precise. They weren't random accusations, they were weaponized, crafted to make Daniel look naive and me look calculating. And Linda knew exactly who to tell. All the right people, influential women, family friends, acquaintances who lived for gossip. Serena hesitated again. Mary, she even said the breakup happened because you couldn't handle being criticized, that you made everything dramatic and stormed out. That one stung the deepest. Because in Linda's narrative, Daniel wasn't weak. He wasn't manipulated. He wasn't torn apart by her control. I was the emotional one. I was the unstable one. I was the reason it ended. It was brilliant in a twisted way. Destroy the woman. Protect the son. Rewrite the truth until the lie feels comfortable. I hung up the phone and sat on the edge of my bed, staring into nothing. The pain wasn't the breakup, it was the injustice. The next week, the whispers spread. I heard them everywhere, crossed arms, sympathetic eyes, murmurs behind me in cafes. She was too needy. She pressured him. She couldn't handle the mother. She's dramatic. She wanted a ring upgrade. She's unstable. She broke the engagement because she was embarrassed. I kept my chin up, but inside I was bruised in places I didn't know could ache. I wanted to lash out, to defend myself, to scream the truth until the walls cracked. But I didn't, because the moment I fought back, it would prove Linda's point. So I stayed quiet, and that silence nearly broke me. 2 weeks after the breakup, I got a call from an unexpected person, Daniel's cousin Abigail. She spoke quietly, urgently. Mary, I know what my aunt is saying, and I want you to know not everyone believes her. A lot of us grew up watching the way she treats Daniel. We know how she can be. The breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding finally escaped. But the next thing she said shifted something inside me. Daniel hasn't been doing well. I froze. What do you mean? He's withdrawn. Not seeing friends, not responding to calls. He's been staying at his parents' house most nights. My aunt is controlling everything around him again. Some of us think he regrets everything, but he's too scared to do anything about it. Her voice softened. Mary, I think you were the closest he ever got to independence. I pressed my forehead against my hand, eyes stinging. But before I could respond, she added, and now Linda is trying to set him up with someone. My heart dropped. What? A wealthy woman from one of her charity circles. Someone older, someone established, someone Linda thinks is more suitable. Of course Linda wouldn't settle for destroying my reputation. She needed a replacement, a better candidate, someone she could parade around as proof that Daniel's failed engagement was for the best. I thanked Abigail for telling me. Then I hung up, and I felt something shift inside me, not sadness, not anger exactly, a realization. Linda was building a future for Daniel that didn't include me, but also didn't include him. And he was letting her. A few days later, I ran into Daniel's friend Eric at the grocery store. His expression softened instantly. Mary, I'm really sorry. I swallowed. For what? For all of it. For how it ended. For how Daniel handled things. For how Linda behaves. He rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. You were good for him. Better than he realized. He's just been under her thumb his entire life. I nodded slowly. I know. That's the part that hurts. Eric hesitated. Then he said gently, he misses you. But he's too afraid to reach out now. Your leaving forced him to confront things he should have dealt with years ago. But he's not strong enough yet. His words cut deep because they were true. Daniel wasn't cruel. He wasn't uncaring. He was simply broken. And his mother preferred him that way. That night, I cried not for the relationship, but for the version of Daniel who might have become someone amazing if he'd ever been allowed to grow on his own. I cried for the future we could have had, for the battles he never learned to fight, for the love that was never the problem, only the environment around it. And when the tears stopped, I wiped my face and whispered the truth I had finally accepted. I can mourn him without returning to him. Because love is a choice, and he never chose himself, so he could never choose me. Not really. Not fully. Not in the ways that mattered. I thought that was the end of our story, but I hadn't seen the fallout yet, and I didn't know that Linda's perfect plan was about to crumble in her own hands. I thought walking away from Daniel would be the end of my heartbreak. But heartbreak doesn't end when you close the door. It ends when the truth finally reveals itself. And the truth, as I would discover, was much darker than I imagined, because Linda didn't only ruin our relationship. She ruined her son, piece by piece. A month passed. I didn't speak to Daniel. I didn't hear from him. I didn't reach out. Not because I was indifferent, far from it, but because pain has a way of becoming a cocoon. You stay inside until you remember how to breathe again. During that month, whispers continued to circle me. Rumors, assumptions, half-truths crafted by Linda's carefully curated narrative. But something else happened too. Her perfect plan began to unravel. It started with another call, this time from Abigail again. She sounded stressed, almost breathless. "Mary, things are getting bad over here." My heart jerked. What happened? Linda pushed too hard. Daniel finally snapped. I sat fully upright. What do you mean, snapped? After the breakup, my aunt started controlling everything. She wouldn't let him see friends. She scheduled his days. She even started screening his calls. She treated him like he was 12 years old. That didn't surprise me, but what she said next did. She also kept pushing him to meet that wealthy woman from her charity circle. You know, the one she thought would be a better fit. I swallowed. Did he meet her? Yes, once. It went terribly. A strange ache grew in my chest. Guilt, relief, sadness. I couldn't tell. What happened? The woman wasn't interested, Abigail said bluntly. She said Daniel seemed emotionally unavailable. And honestly, he is. He looks hollow, like he's living someone else's life. A silence stretched between us. And now I whispered. Now my aunt is furious, Abigail continued. She's been going after him nonstop, blaming him, nagging him, rearranging his life. He's barely functioning. My breath caught. He's breaking down Mary. I've never seen him like this. I pressed a hand to my chest. This wasn't vindication. This wasn't satisfaction. This was tragedy. Because I never wanted Daniel to suffer. I just wanted him free. Abigail lowered her voice. He keeps asking about you. My throat tightened. What does he say? That he made the biggest mistake of his life. That he should have defended you. That he should have stood up to her a long time ago. He's drowning, Mary. I felt tears sting my eyes. But I didn't interrupt. Last night, Abigail continued, he told my aunt that he didn't want her making decisions for him anymore, and she lost it. A chill ran down my spine. She screamed. She threw things. She accused him of being ungrateful, irresponsible, easily manipulated. She told him he ruined his future by not marrying you, but somehow also blamed you for everything. Of course she did. Of course she found a way to twist even the truth into her version of events. And Daniel, I whispered. He left the house in the middle of the night, packed a bag and walked out. He's staying with a friend now. Mom is calling everyone trying to find him. She can't control him and she's panicking. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Daniel had finally done it. He had taken the first step toward becoming his own person. But part of me mourned that he had to collapse before he found clarity. Mary Abigail said gently, I'm not telling you this to pressure you. I'm telling you because you deserve to know what really happened. You were right, but he's trying. He's really trying. I swallowed hard. Does he want to talk to me? There was a pause. I think he wants to, she said softly, but I think he's afraid you won't want to talk to him. Maybe I should have been angry. Maybe I should have felt vindicated. Maybe I should have let him stay away. But instead, all I felt was grief for a man who had never been allowed to grow. 2 nights later, I got the message. Not a text, not a call. A recorded voice message. Daniel's voice was fragile in a way that didn't sound like him at all. Mary, I don't know if you want to hear from me, but I need to apologize. For everything. For letting my mother hurt you. For not standing up for you. For letting her run my life. I see it now. I see all of it. You were right, and I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to be my own person, but I'm trying. I'm trying now. I'm sorry. I miss you. I listened to it 3 times. And when I finally put the phone down, a tear slipped down my cheek. Not because I was sad, but because I knew the truth. I loved him. But I wasn't his cure. I wasn't his salvation. I wasn't the antidote to a lifetime of manipulation. I was simply the mirror that reflected what he refused to face. And he had to heal on his own. The next morning, he showed up. I heard the knock. I froze. My heart pounded against my ribs like it wanted to run away. When I opened the door, Daniel stood there, exhausted, eyes hollow, face unshaven, shoulders slumped. He looked like a boy who lost his map. Mary, he whispered. Everything in me twisted. Daniel, I breathed. He took a shaky breath. I ruined everything he said. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I needed you to know I'm trying to break free. To be someone better, someone stronger, someone who deserves you. My eyes stung. Daniel, I said softly, you don't need to be someone who deserves me. You need to be someone who deserves yourself. He swallowed, voice cracking. I want to fix things. I want us, if there's any chance. I held up a trembling hand. I care about you more than you know, but you're still healing. You're still learning who you are without your mother's control. If we try to rebuild now, it will crumble again." He looked devastated, but he nodded, because he knew I was right. "It's not a no," I whispered gently. "It's a not right now." Daniel looked at me like he was memorizing the moment, holding it, cherishing it, fearing it. Then he said something I will never forget. "You were the only person who ever stood up for me, even when I wouldn't stand up for myself." And with that, he left. Not angry, not begging, not broken. Determined. For the first time in his life, Daniel was fighting to exist separate from Linda. Separate from fear. Separate from control. Whether that would bring him back to me someday, I didn't know. But for the first time in months, I felt hope. Not for us. For him. Time has a strange way of softening edges while sharpening truth. Weeks passed after Daniel stood at my door, apologizing with a voice full of guilt and longing. He didn't pressure me. He didn't demand answers. He didn't try to force us back together. He gave me space, and in that space, something unexpected happened. I rediscovered myself. I began painting again, something I hadn't done consistently in years. I started running every morning before sunrise, letting the quiet wash away the heaviness that had lived inside me for too long. I met friends for dinner. I laughed more. I slept without waking in a cold panic, waiting for the next emotional blow from Linda's direction. Life didn't go back to normal. It became something better. But the story between Daniel and me still had one final chapter, one last painful truth that needed to reveal itself. It was a Sunday afternoon when Daniel called. Not texted, not messaged, called. I hesitated before answering, my heart thudding like an old memory trying to return. When I picked up, his voice sounded steady, clear, different. "Mary, can we talk in person?" Something in his tone made me say yes. We decided to meet at a small coffee shop downtown, the kind of place with warm light and clinking cups where conversations feel safe. When I walked in, Daniel was already there, back, straight hands clasped, eyes steady. Not the broken version of himself I'd seen weeks earlier. Not the terrified boy under his mother's control. Something in him had shifted. He stood when he saw me. "Mary." "Daniel," I said softly, taking a seat across from him. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he exhaled, as if releasing years of tension. "I cut contact with her," he said quietly. My breath caught. "With Linda." He nodded. "I moved out for good. I blocked her number. I changed my address. I told her if she wanted any relationship with me in the future, she'd have to treat me like an adult, not a possession." Shock flickered through me. I had imagined this scenario 100 different ways, but hearing it, really hearing it from his lips, stunned me silent. His mother had been the immovable force in his life, the puppeteer, the shadow that shaped him, and he finally walked away from her. "How did she react?" I asked. Daniel let out a humorless breath. "Exactly how you would think. Screaming, blaming me, blaming you, telling everyone I've been manipulated and turned against her. But it didn't matter this time." He leaned forward, eyes steady on mine. For the first time, her words didn't control me. I swallowed hard. "Daniel, I'm proud of you." "I'm not done," he said gently, as if preparing me for something heavier. "The reason I wanted to see you today is because I needed to tell you the truth face to face." My fingers tightened around the warm coffee cup. "What truth?" "That I still love you," he said. "And losing you was the pain I needed to finally see how deep her control ran. But I'm not here to ask you to come back." I froze. He shook his head. "No, Mary. I'm not here to pull you into another storm. I'm here because I owe you something I should have given you a long time ago." My chest constricted. "What's that?" I whispered. He looked directly into my eyes, his voice quiet but unwavering. "Freedom." The words sank into me slowly, painfully, beautifully. "I'm letting you go," he said. "Not because I don't love you, but because I finally understand what you meant. I need to rebuild myself, separate from her, separate from everything she shaped me into. And I can't rebuild by clinging to you." His eyes glistened. "I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me." My throat tightened, tears burning the corners of my eyes. This wasn't a breakup. This was a release, a healing, a confession. A goodbye, drenched in love, not possession. "Daniel," I whispered, "you didn't fail me. You just weren't free." He swallowed hard. And now he said, voice breaking but steady, "I'm trying to be." A silence settled between us, gentle, forgiving, final. I reached across the table and took his hand. "I hope you find the life you deserve," I said softly. He nodded, tears slipping down his face. "And I hope you find someone who loves you without needing permission." We sat there like that for a long time, two people who had once been everything to each other, now learning how to exist apart. When we finally stood, he pulled me into a brief, trembling embrace. Then he whispered, "Thank you for being the reason I finally opened my eyes." And when we parted, I realized something profound. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't lost. I wasn't empty. I was free too. Because sometimes the greatest love story you experience is the one that teaches you to choose yourself. Daniel walked away in one direction. I walked away in another. No bitterness, no resentment, no unfinished words. Just two people closing a door gently, both hoping the other would find their way to a future better than anything they could have built together. And this time, it wasn't a tragedy. It was growth. It was peace. It was the ending we both needed, even if it wasn't the one we once hoped for.